Hi everyone.
Welcome back to Our Dinner is Done. I'm Sally.
I'm Jimmy.
Today we're going to be making something that Jimmy made for me the first time he ever cooked for me, and it was his way of impressing me, and it worked, but we'll tell you a little bit more about that, but go ahead and tell them what we're making tonight.
Yes, so today we're going to be making steamed little neck clams with a chicken chorizo sausage. You could use regular sausage or regular chorizo. We don't eat a lot of pork or beef, so that's why we're using the chicken chorizo. And then we're going to do it with a side of Italian bread. This was a full loaf, but 2 seconds away from it, and one of our dogs knocked it down and ate about a quarter of it. Mm-hmm. So we'll have a slightly less amount of bread. Something else we're going to add to it, we got a shipment of vegetables today, and we got this gorgeous bushel of fresh kale that is just not going to fit in the fridge. So we're going to add a salad onto this meal tonight. So I'm going to make a chopped kale salad with a couple of tomatoes, and we are going to also make some fresh croutons out of some couple day old bread that we have. So it's still semi-fresh, but you can tell it's kind of losing its crispness. So I'm going to show you how to turn this into croutons and make some better use out of it.
Yep, and it's a great way to use bread that's on its way out. We already preheated the oven. We have that on 425. So when we're ready to put that in, we will. It doesn't take all that long to do it. But let's take a look at some of the things that we're going to do first. I assume you're going to start with your onion.
I am.
And he's the one who's going to cut the onion. I don't really have the cutting skills that he has. Hopefully you can see our countertop a little bit better this week. We're still working on getting a second camera, but right now you might get a better shot of how he cuts the onion. Like I said, he does a much better job than I do. I'm going to check out the chat, see if you have any questions, and just say hello to you again.
All right, so I'm starting with one about medium to large onion. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to locate the two ends. One end is going to be the hairy end, and one end is going to be just the opposite end, just regular end. That's the end we're going to be cutting. So you want to cut it so that your knife is cutting along the hairy end and the opposite end, so that once you slice those in half, you're left with the two halves, because we're going to use those to keep this together. I always like to keep a bowl on handy just to put all the scraps into it.
The garbage bowl, as we like to call it. But to get back to what we did, or what he made the first time we had dinner together was in his apartment, he made steamed clams for me. So that's what we're going to have tonight. You also made me a chicken dish, I think, but the clams were the star. And I guess we had been dating for a couple of weeks, and it was maybe, I would say, I don't know, we had been together
a couple weeks, maybe a month, not even.
And he invited me over to his apartment to cook, and he was going to cook dinner for me. Yeah. And
it was pouring rain.
It was pouring rain.
And I'm not the best at parallel parking.
I'm not, at the time.
Where I lived, you could only parallel park on the street. So I got a phone call that said, oh my gosh, I found a spot, but I can't pull into it.
No, actually, I couldn't find a spot. That was it. I couldn't find a spot. I told him, hey, can you come downstairs? First of all, I had never been to his apartment, so I didn't know where he lived. And I said, can you come back downstairs, or can you come downstairs and show me where I could park my car without getting towed or without getting a ticket? And he came down, he parked my car for me in the rain, showed me back up to his apartment, such a gentleman. And I knew pretty much right off the bat that he was going to be a wonderful match for me. His apartment was spotless clean.
It wasn't just because she was coming over.
Yeah,
it's
was
always
spotless. It was a really nice apartment too. It was really, really nice and clean. And he had just nice decor, and he was cooking. And he knows now, especially, that the way to my heart is through my stomach. For sure.
Yeah.
So this is a really, really good dish. We've used it for friends when we want to impress guests that are coming over too. So in our Instagram chat, I had asked, what dishes do you make to impress people? So if you want to tell us in the chat, or if you want to tell us on our Instagram, you can do that. Our Instagram is @OurDinnerisDunn.
Yeah. Maybe that could be even be inspiration for
Yeah.
some other items.
Yeah, maybe you can
some
tell
other
us some of the things that you
shows
like
we
to
cook
eat.
for.
And we can come up with some recipes that we could maybe put up on here.
Yeah.
So let's get going.
Alright, so I'm going to continue on with the onion. So now I've peeled the onion, both halves. So you're going to want to leave the hairy end together. It's easy to tell because it looks like it's got little bits of hair. The opposite end, I'm just going to cut at the very tip of that, to cut that off, to get the end off. And then what I'm going to do is, you'll see that the onion has these natural lines within it. I don't know, that's a little blurry, but there are some natural lines in there. So I'm just going to follow the lines along, slicing it up until the hairy end, but not through the hairy end, so that it's actually going to hold together. If you remember last week, this is actually how I sliced the garlic. It's just on a larger scale.
Right. It's much easier to do it with the onion.
So now I have all these slices following the lines on the onion. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my knife, holding my hand on top, and I'm going to slice across the onion so that when I cut into the onion, it's going to be these nice, even dices. So I'm going to slice it 3 times, going in the opposite direction, and it's almost like Outback style. This would be the bloomin' onion. This is actually the cuts that they make for that.
For sure.
And now simply what I'm going to do, using the tips of my fingers and my knuckles, I'm going to dice this onion up the rest of the way.
Would you like me to get this started for you?
You get started with a little olive oil.
Okay, and medium heat?
Medium heat will work.
Alright, so I'm going to turn on the stove medium heat for us here and add some olive oil so that we can get these onions cooking up. And we usually just use extra virgin olive oil, like I said last week. We pretty much get whatever's on sale, but get something that you like for your own tastes.
Yeah, and I would spend the extra $1 or $2 on an extra virgin olive oil. It is going to have a better flavor overall.
Absolutely.
And especially if you're using your olive oil across a bunch of platforms. If you're using it to dip your bread in, if you're using it to make a salad dressing, the extra virgin olive oil, or pasta sauces, it really does make a difference. So I'm just doing the same process with the other half of the onion.
I see that my mom has joined us. Hopefully your mom has joined us too. I know that she was going to make an account this week. So.
Wow, that'd be impressive if she did it by herself.
She was here last week, but she wasn't on the chat, so hopefully this time she might be able to join us on the chat.
Yeah, so, I mean, it'd be cool if she joined us, because my dad was actually the one to teach me this recipe, so it'd be cool if my mom could see this once again.
And it is delicious.
So now my onion is all diced up. Olive oil is heating up.
It is good. Making sure it's all over the pot here.
Yep. And again, just like last week, you know it's ready to go when your olive oil is moving at a quicker pace. It's hard to see from this angle, but it's flowing very quickly. I'm just going to add my onion. I need to get one of those scoopers.
We do. We have to get one of those scoopers.
We need to upgrade some of our utensils.
We do. We did get a new fancy.
I got my tongs that I got to use last week with the pasta.
Right,
I was very excited.
And
then my chef spatula. Which sounds so silly because everyone has their generic spatula at home. This guy's so hard to work with. It's hard to flip anything. This spatula, which is also like known as a fish spatula, it's just a lot easier to work with, has a little bit of a sharper edge, and just gives you a little more control over.
And we learned that just recently on the Food Network, which is something that we kind of constantly have on in our house. And they said that most chefs, professional chefs, prefer that one to a regular plastic spatula.
Yeah.
So we were thinking of one of those little scrapers that you can kind of scoop up and put everything in the bowl. It makes things a little bit easier. So you have your onion here.
Gonna add a little salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper, that's what we love to put in to all of our food. And if you remember from last week, Jimmy said that he likes to do that pretty much anytime he puts another ingredient in. It kind of layers the flavors up. You may have seen on my brother's channel, my brother Peter's channel, he was working on a logo for us, and we decided to use a salt and pepper shaker because we thought that pretty much encapsulated.
Pretty fitting, yeah.
Encapsulated
use a little more salt and pepper just because you want it to taste good. It's such an easy simple step, just adding that salt and pepper throughout. And I feel like in all the cooking shows we always watch, they're always like, not enough salt, not enough salt. So.
And I'll never forget when we were at a cooking class in Italy, and we were taking the pasta making class.
With our onions in there.
Oh yeah, that looks good, and it smells really good too. But at the pasta making class, they told us, like, when you're salting up that water, you're really putting in a lot. And I was amazed at how much the chef had dumped in there. I was thinking, oh my gosh, it's gonna make it so overly salty, but no, it was perfect. So we want to kind of over salt. I'm gonna check the chat.
So I got the onions just simmering on medium-low heat. I'm gonna let them cook off. I don't want to rush them. I really want them to reduce down. I'm gonna get our clams ready. So I bought a dozen clams on the ride home. You'll notice a lot of times this is how they pack: plastic bag, paper bag, and then inside a plastic bag in there. You know, it's really important that this bag is not tied. You never want the bag to be tied because the clams are live. If the bag is tied, the clams will die, and then you're going to have rotten clams. So you always want to make sure the bag's open. You can put it in the fridge. I had it in the fridge till just a minute ago, just to keep them fresh. But you always want to make sure that it's open. You also always want to make sure you wash your clams before you use them, just to get off anything from the ocean.
Yep, you might feel some sand or something like that, so we like to give them a good rinse. And you said that was a pound of clams, right?
2 dozen clams.
Oh, 2 dozen. 2 dozen clams.
2 dozen little necks.
Little.
Little necks, cherry stones, you can kind of go whatever you want. For steamed clams, I would pretty much always go with little necks. They're a nice size. They're not too large, but they're going to be meaty enough, briny enough. I mean, depending on what coast you're on, you're going to pretty much find clams anywhere. Whatever's local, whatever's fresh. When you're at the seafood counter, whether you're at the supermarket or whether you're at a farmer's market that I went to that also has a fish market, you could always just ask, what's fresh? What's the best clams for steam? They're always super helpful behind the fish counter whenever you ask them. They're just really nice and knowledgeable.
And also, this is something that when we're going to eat it tonight, we're going to eat it with Italian bread. We love to dunk the Italian bread in the juices and like the sauce that we're going to make this in. But you could easily put this over pasta. It would make a really good pasta sauce. I actually love linguine and clams. That's something that I eat. Yep, linguine vongole. If I'm saying that right, Mark, you could tell me with your Italian knowledge. But it's really great over pasta. But tonight we're just going to make it with a nice big kale salad and dip it with some Italian bread. So it's going to be yummy. I'm going to keep stirring up these onions here. They are cooking.
They are. So I'm going to get the chorizo ready. I don't have to worry about really switching my cutting board because these are pre-cooked chorizo. If you had a raw chorizo, you'd want to make sure you're either switching out your cutting boards, or in this case, I'm just going to use a poultry cutting board to put right on top. And I'm going to cut these up, and then I'm going to add them in so they can start to cook down with our onions and just add that layer of flavor.
Yeah, and you're going to want these to kind of just brown up a little bit because, like you said, they are already pre-cooked, but you want that nice, like, little browning on it.
You want a nice little bit of char on it. That's where a lot of the flavor is going to come out.
Exactly. Normally, too, with regular chorizo, with pork chorizo, it will kind of break apart a little bit easier. With the chicken chorizo, it's like a consistency of like a hot dog.
Yeah, the casing's a little bit differently. So with a regular chorizo, you could cut the casing off
and
pull the chorizo out. Or you could even buy your sausage if you're using a typical pork sausage. You could buy it without the casing. Whichever you really prefer, either one will work. I kind of like it in the sausage form, like it within the casing.
So you get a nice little like meaty bite.
Yeah.
Normally, with sausage, if you break it apart, the pieces are going to just be a little bit smaller. This is going to be, I guess you can make kind of like rounds if you like them like that, or you can
break it even quarter them.
Quarter them, right. That's typically what I do. I like to use these chicken chorizo sausages in, like, we make like a Spanish style rice. We've made like a paella with it before, so those are really good for that as a pork substitute.
Another way to make these go a little bit farther, if you do end up quartering them, it's going to look like more. They're also going to be little bite size. Preference tonight, slices or?
Why don't you quarter them up then? That always, especially since we lost part of our bread too.
It's going to look like more. Thanks, Meatball. So I'm just slicing them up. They're quarter size. They're about 1/4 of an inch thick as well.
We have our little baby helper over here watching us again today. Just checking up on him, and I was checking up on the chat. If you have any questions for us, let us know. We learned our lesson from last week, but we strapped in the toys, so hopefully they won't go flying all over the floor again. But he looks like he's good to go. And so are we. This is smelling really good here. This doesn't really take a lot of ingredients either, like our meal last week. We like to cook with a few
Pretty
ingredients.
simple. I mean, the true Italian way of cooking is, 5 ingredients, and it goes a long way, and you let those ingredients shine. Salt and pepper doesn't count, that's just your seasoning, but 5 main ingredients. So in this case, it's going to be the onions, the clams, the sausage, onions, clams, sausage, garlic,
some white wine.
some white wine.
And when it comes to the wine, you can pick something that you would like to drink.
Yeah, don't get cheap on the wine that you're going to be cooking with. You want to put just as much care into it. So something that you're going to be willing to drink as well. With this clams, I always go with the Pinot Grigio. It's a nice dry wine. And just anything that has the DOC label on it, which is the label which you can see right on the top there. It just means that it is of a higher quality. So as long as it has that label, you're good to go. You can get a nice bottle of Pinot that's good for cooking, good for drinking on a hot day for between $10 and $15.
And we do like to drink wine here. We prefer to drink red wine when we're drinking it, but with cooking you use a lot of white. So the Pinot is a good choice. Okay, those look good. I'm going to give our onions a quick stir again. They look good and smell good too. And actually, it looks like quite a bit of sausage here, so it's going to be
That's a pretty good amount, yeah.
yummy. Let's think. So I can't remember the first time I cooked for you. I remember when you cooked for me because it was so early in our relationship, but I don't remember when I cooked for you.
Was it peanut noodles or was it?
I would think I probably
or was
made.
it a bake?
No, I would think I probably made the peanut
down.
noodles. I like to make, one of my specialties is a spicy peanut noodle, kind of like Thai-inspired noodles. You use a sweet kind of chili, spicy sauce, and you mix it actually with peanut butter. You could use chicken as your protein, or even shrimp. Super easy too. That's another type of meal that we'll certainly make on this channel again, or we'll make it someday soon.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, we
Hi.
have Babs calling. Hi, we are streaming. How are you?
I'm fine, but I can't get into chat. I'm watching.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure how to help you right now.
Okay.
Maybe someone on the chat can help her out. Did you sign up for an account?
I can't figure it out.
Oh.
You know me.
Maybe someone in the chat can help her out. Give her instructions on what to do while we cook.
Okay.
Nice to talk to you.
All right, love you, Mom.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so we added the chicken chorizo sausage in here. Actually, would you hand me a little bit more olive oil? I'm just gonna put a little bit more of that since it kind of cooked down with the onions. I'm just gonna let this brown up a bit.
The chorizo's in. We've turned up the heat a little bit to medium. I'm gonna start getting the garlic ready. So just a light tap. We'll remove the skin. Again, it's always helpful when you have your little garbage bucket on the side. That way you don't make a mess of your cutting board. I'm going to wait to add the garlic until the last minute because garlic's going to brown up very quickly and there's nothing worse than burnt garlic.
Yes. And we love our garlic in this house. We use a lot of it, but you definitely don't want it to burn. Something that we can do in another stream is actually show you how to roast garlic. If you haven't done that, that's really tasty.
Thanksgiving is around the corner. Nothing makes it better. Mashed potato And roasted garlic mashed potatoes.
Yes, roasted garlic. We love to put that in our mashed potatoes during the holidays. It's also something that you could just kind of smother on top of bread, which is really, really yummy too. It kind of comes out in like a creamy consistency that way, and the flavor is totally different.
It gets, when you roast it, the flavor is much, much milder. So if you're a person who's like, oh, I don't really like garlic, try roasted garlic. It's really going to be a game changer for you.
Right. It's a little milder, and it's also a little
definitely.
sweeter. So it's really tasty. But in this case, we just want your standard chopped garlic.
So I'm just dicing up, I'm going to dice up 4 cloves of garlic because,
That's what we like.
yeah, we don't really care if our breath smells. Everyone's wearing masks anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
It's looking good. Our clams are already rinsed up. We have everything that we need out here. You're going to want to use a measuring cup when you pour in the wine. Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes we don't measure. A lot of the time we just go by sight or just kind of what we're used to doing when we put things together.
Yeah, I tend not to measure anything, but for the purposes of this stream, I'm going to measure.
That's true. And I'll try to put this recipe up on our Instagram as well. I'll type that up for you a little bit later on and put that up so that you can try to make this at home if you so choose.
Yeah, so those are browned up nicely. So sometimes I'll do this, not in the recipe, but we had some leftover peppers and we had a couple of leftover tomatoes as well. So just to give a pop of color in the dish, if you have any red and yellow tomatoes or red and yellow peppers or red and yellow tomatoes, just slicing those up and throwing them in as well is going to give a nice pop of color to the dish.
And we love these little like mini bell peppers. They're really tasty. You could eat them raw like that, put them on a salad. We love to put them in stir fries. The other night we made a stir fry that we also put up on our Instagram that is, it was just a way to kind of use some of the leftovers that we had from the night before. We had some leftover white jasmine rice, cooked jasmine rice. We had some green beans and mushrooms and a little medley. And the following night we used these little sweet bell peppers, some onions, some garlic, and mixed them all together. Added some shrimp and like a sweet and spicy like Szechuan sauce, and it was delicious. It's a great way to use up what you already have in your fridge so things don't go to waste.
Yeah, we don't like to throw anything out in this house, so.
That's for sure. And, you know, we could always rely on meatball to kind of eat things off the counter. So. Actually, it's not always meatball.
Well, meatball starts it, and Hogan finishes it.
We have 3 dogs at home. If you don't know, we have 3 dogs. Our dogs are Hogan, who is our 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old puggle. We have our pit bull Meatball, and we have our pit bull Rigatoni, who we call Riggy. And the 2 boys are they're very food driven, so they like to find what we're going to be cooking and go and have a snack. So while we were upstairs earlier, Meatball grabbed our Italian bread.
Well, we're upstairs for 2 minutes.
Yeah,
That's
it was
nice.
very, very
We're
quick
not up there for
turnaround.
very long.
He had just walked in with bread, put it on the counter. We went upstairs, came back downstairs. Bread was on the floor. And he loves to go in the trash can too.
Oh, the trash can was open as well.
So like we said, we have our onions cooking, our little bell peppers cooking, the chorizo browning up, our chicken chorizo browning up, and he threw in some little cherry tomatoes as well. And like we said, we're going to put that garlic in at the last minute because we don't want it to burn. So we're just going to kind of like let this cook together a bit and brown up. It smells so good. I really wish you could smell what we're smelling in here because it's awesome.
So while that's cooking down, I'm going to get our leftover bread and I'm going to make some croutons to put in our salad. So I'm just going to slice up the bread. It's going to turn into croutons, so it doesn't have to be a really clean slice. About an inch thick will do though. Bread is a little older than I thought, which is totally fine. It's giving me a tough time.
It's just a little harder to cut.
Just like that.
I don't think that our son really
He
likes
does
the
not
idea
approve.
of the stale bread.
He might be a little jealous because he wanted some bread when we were cooking this and didn't get a slice, so he was a little bummed out about that. Alright, so I'm just going to take that bread, after I put it into slices, I'm going to slice it in half again. I'm going to throw it into a mixing bowl. The larger pieces, I'm going to slice in half and in half again, so I'm going to quarter them. So you get pieces that are just about the size of a quarter. So making your own croutons is actually
Really
wildly simple, and they're going to taste so much better than store-bought croutons, which are just kind of all crunch and no like soft body to them, and really no seasoning. They taste as processed as they really are. All right, so I have my croutons in the bowl. I'm going to add some extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to be pretty generous with this so that it coats the bread fully. And then I'll just give them a quick toss. I have every dog underneath my feet.
Yes, we're
for a
cooking
crumb.
with all 3 dogs under our feet. That's the typical situation in our kitchen when we're cooking, and also when we're doing the dishes. We have this little like cushion mat underneath our sink, and that's where they love to sit. So while you're doing the dishes, you have to kind of hover over them to get to the sink. And right now they are all at our feet.
Looking for some breadcrumbs. So at this point, bread is coated in olive oil. Just going to add a little salt and pepper.
like we usually do.
Like the usual. Pretty standard. Very straightforward. That's really all they need.
We love using
How about a
that
tablespoon
sea
of
salt.
each? The sea salt and the fresh grinders really makes a difference. I'm going to toss these around. I want to get them as coated as possible. Best way to check if you like the seasoning, it'll be coated along the outside. You can just taste your spoon. Whoa!
Hey, what's going on?
That tastes good. Where'd you go?
Here is a tray for the croutons to go in the oven.
So I preheated the oven to 425. Put a little spray on there, cooking spray. Spread out the croutons. A little too big. So I got my croutons ready to go. They're gonna pop in the oven now. They're gonna be in there about maybe 5-10 minutes.
So they could see. You could see a tail. It was probably, if it was a happy tail, it was probably Riggy. Her tail is always going.
All right, so our onion and pepper and tomato and chorizo mix is really starting to cook down now. It's smelling wonderful. We're just gonna let this simmer and get to know each other a little bit more. Add a touch of salt and pepper. Switch to my new salt grinder. Give those guys a mix. Again, I'm gonna wait to put in that garlic as well as the crushed red pepper until the last second. So now I can get the kale ready.
And it's, you know, it's really interesting because I'm not generally that much into kale, except when he makes it. But he makes it in really good, different ways. Sometimes he sautés it up, sometimes he puts it in a salad for us, sometimes we add it to pasta dishes. But this is a really simple salad that is very, very yummy. I'm going to check on the baby while he does that.
So you got your kale, I already pre-washed it. Easy way to do it, you can pull back along the center vein and the kale will pull right off. That's all the kale that you want. You don't want to leave the vein in. It's going to be too fibrous and it's pretty much inedible. So I'm just going to pull back along. This one fell apart, but that'll work. Again, I got my little bowl to add all my garbage to. I'm just pulling that back and throwing out the rest. So this will just take a moment to get through. I'm going to be dicing the kale, because again, kale is pretty fibrous. If you're not cooking it down, getting a big hunk of kale can be a little unappetizing. So really dicing it down is going to be your best bet.
That's right. It does look like he might be trying to say hello to his grandmas that he knows are watching the show. I saw that my mom commented he might meet his grandmas. I think you're right. Right on cue. He actually has been a little bit fussier because his teeth are coming in. He had 2 big teeth come in this week. So he's a very pleasant baby. But right now he's
Most
like, hey,
of the time,
pick me up. He's actually sitting right beside us in his high chair, and he's watching us. And last week that's where we had him too. So he's got all his toys there, and he's right by our reach.
His
within our
toys,
reach.
we strapped the toys onto him so that he couldn't get rid of them.
But
he likes to throw things onto the ground.
that, and he also loves for us to be carrying him all the time. But we don't want to be carrying him right now or wearing him while we're cooking with the stove and everything on and
Nah,
hot
I don't
oil.
think that would be best practice. Alright, so just about done with this kale. Quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a
Salad.
really, really big piece of kale here. Actually, I don't know if we had mentioned, but we order our produce from Misfit Markets, and their the quality of the produce is really, really great. And we actually just got our box today, so this is one of the things that came inside. And that kale is one of the biggest bushels of kale. I guess we call it a bushel, right?
Yeah,
bushel
we call it a
of kale
bushel.
that we've ever received.
Yeah. So it's a nice huge bushel. And the leafy greens aren't really going to keep that long. So we always kind of try to use them as soon as we can. Alright, so I'm going to take the greens and I'm going to kind of try and stack them on top of one another into a nice little bunch. So I have a little bunch of kale here. And then I'm just going to roll it into a little ball. And then for my next step, I'm just going to go along that little ball and I'm just going to slice. And this is how you get a nice dice on a green. This will work with fresh herbs as well. So now I have the long dice. I'm just going to turn my greens and come back around on the other end. And now my kale is nice and finely
And
diced.
small.
The smaller you make the kale, the easier it is to eat and digest. So I'm just going to continue this process with the kale. Maybe need a bigger bowl.
It looks like it. Our timer is about to go off with our croutons. It sounds like our timer is going off on our baby. When this comes out, am I just giving them a stir? Or they're ready?
Yeah, give them a stir. I set it for 5 minutes. You don't want to burn them because you only get one shot at it. So I set it for 5 minutes, so just in case it's not ready, I could always add a little more time. Somebody says there's enough time on that. So this sort of chop you would refer to as a rough chop because it doesn't really have a necessary rhyme or reason. It's not a julienne, it's not necessarily a dice, just a nice fine rough chop.
Here is our croutons. I don't know if you can see them, but I'll bring them over here.
Hey!
Nice view.
Hi, buddy.
They look like they are pretty good. I might actually just give them a little toss and put them back in for a moment. And then I might have to pick up the baby.
What? Sad, sad baby. All right, so I'm just about getting done with the kale. I'm gonna grab a bigger bushel to expedite this process. Is kale still trendy?
It really was very trendy for
It
a
was
long
like
time.
the real trendy thing to eat. I feel like Cup of Kiwi probably eats kale.
I don't know if he's in the chat today.
It's disappointing. I've seen Cup of Kiwi's face. It's spectacular.
There we go, baby.
All right, the kale is finally diced. Much more than I thought it would make. So I filled up a nice, huge 4-quart bowl of kale. All right. Baby is mellowing out because he's being held.
Grandma said, I
No
think-
chance Kiwi only eats fried things. That does sound more accurate there, Mark.
Yes, and I think that you're right, Grandma. I think I might need to give him his balloon. Maybe that's what I should have done while he was sitting in his high chair. But recently it was my birthday, and when we celebrated, I was given some balloons, and we still have them in the house, and this baby absolutely loves them. And he's been saying, ah, 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 because whatever he wants to ask for.
loves his balloon. All right, so our onion and chorizo, tomato and pepper onion is cooked down. It's been on here for probably about 20 minutes. I've just kept an eye on it. I've kept the heat at about medium-low. It's a 4 on here. So it's nice and cooked down. I don't want it to spill, but I also want to show everyone. So it's all nice and cooked down. You see it's really reduced. Your onions are going to start to get translucent. They've actually taken on the color of the chorizo, so they have almost like a reddish hue, which is wonderful. That's going to add flavor to that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make a little space in the center of this pan, or this pot rather. Add a touch of olive oil, and then I'm going to add my garlic. I'm going to add it to the center just because that's where all the heat is. That's where it's going to cook the quickest. Might get a little kale in there, but it's no problem. All right. So I have that added. I'm now going to add my crushed red pepper. Again, we don't really use measuring cups in here, but again, I'm going to use the palm of my hand. That's going to be just about under a tablespoon, maybe about a teaspoon. Going to keep it hot, but not too hot. Now I'm going to mix this up, let this all dance together. Rigatoni is going to try and eat everything underneath my feet.
All the crumbs. Do you think that these are good to
They're
go?
good. I actually
so
snuck one when you weren't looking.
All right, so the croutons are good. So they only take about 5 minutes. Super easy, super simple. This is ready to rock and roll here.
So our kale is ready. Dressing-wise, we're going to dress it at the very end. It's going to be a super simple dressing. Guess what we're going to use that I can prep now? The dry ingredients. I'm going to put some salt and pepper in there. I'm going to be pretty generous with the pepper because there's quite a bit of kale in there. I'm pretty generous with the salt. That's the empty one. Pretty generous with the salt. I'm going to add my wet ingredients at the very end, which are just going to be olive oil and half a lemon. Best dressing you can have is olive oil and lemon. It really just goes a long way. So while this is cooking down, our garlic and our crushed red pepper are cooking into there, I'm going to get my white wine ready to go. I'm actually going to use a measuring cup here. So we're going to go for a cup to start, because I'm not really going to be able to judge it that well.
I think he's all set now. And he's standing, Joy.
I think so.
A little change of scenery.
Yeah, I think a cup's going to do it. I usually measure by how much of the bottle, so about a quarter of the bottle. You can add more if you wanted. If you are not a drinker, you could use chicken stock, would work just as well. If you don't have wine on hand, you could use a beer.
A beer.
And I would use about a whole beer is going to get you there. Maybe a couple sips for you. So while that's getting ready, I am going to get some of the last things that are going to go in there. I have some fresh Italian parsley and some fresh basil. So we're going to add that at the very end. So I'm just going to prep the greens. So I'm just picking off the leaves from the parsley.
And this is cooking really, really nicely. The chorizo's getting its nice little brown bits in there. The vegetables are really softening up. So this looks very, very tasty.
The same way I cut the kale, I'm going to ball up the parsley and just slice it up. I'm just going to slice it one time across each way and then just leave it. You don't want to bruise it up too much. The fresh herbs really add such a nice freshness to a dish, and you just want to add them at the end. You don't want to cook them. Then I'm going to add a couple of leaves of basil and just slice these up as well. You can go ahead and add the wine in there.
Okay, so I'll put this, like we said, it's about a cup of the white wine. We're going to pour this in our pot here with the rest of the ingredients. Give it a stir.
And I'm going to turn the heat up to medium-high now. I'm going to leave it without the top on it first because I want the alcohol in the wine to cook off. Then I'm going to add the clams into there.
Okay, so that's going to kind of boil up a little bit.
So we're going to bring it to a boil, and that's about when it's going to release all of the alcohol in there. And we can just taste it to make sure it's good to go. Fussy baby today, fussy baby. So bring this up to a boil depending on whether you're on an electric or a gas stove. There's not a ton of liquid in there, so it's probably going to take anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes. You can smell it right away. You will smell alcohol. That means it's not going to be ready yet. So once it comes up to a full simmering boil, it's going to need another 2 to 4 minutes. We have a lot of chorizo and onions and peppers and crying baby. So it might take a little bit longer. So we're going to let that go.
It's already starting to bubble up and boil, and that just shows you that alcohol is going to cook off.
Cranky guy, cranky guy.
He might want his own dinner.
He might. So while we're waiting that, it's starting to come to a simmer now. I'm just gonna slice up our bread to get that ready for later. Just nice slices is gonna work. This is my favorite part of having steamed clams is dipping the bread in the sauce.
For sure. You can also make this with mussels.
Oh, absolutely.
Mussels are great as well, and super easy to make like this too. A lot of the time you're gonna have mussels in like a red sauce, but you could very easily make them in white sauce like this, and it would be very tasty.
We got our bread ready. Some bowls. Mama. Fussy little boy. All right, I can smell it. It's coming to a boil now. It's starting to steam up. Again, I don't want to put the top on yet because I want that alcohol to cook off. This is coming together very, very nicely.
Starts to thicken up a little bit too.
Starts to thicken up. I'm going to add my clams in now at this point. You don't want to just dump them in because you don't want them to crack and break. So I'm just going to add them in by hand. Mix them about just so they're semi-submerged in the sauce.
Sounds good, doesn't it? I think he just wanted in on the action.
Sounds about right. So I have just about enough liquid to almost submerge the clams, which is perfect. It's okay, they don't have to be fully submerged in the liquid. The steam's gonna do the rest of the work. I'm actually gonna just add a touch of water to get us there, just a half of a cup, just to give us a little bit more boiling liquid. So I'm gonna let this steam off just for a second. I can still smell that wine, so I'm just gonna let it continue
Needs a little more time.
to cook off. And let's finish prepping the rest of our salad. So like I said, it's gonna be olive oil and lemon and Parmesan cheese. We just use the container just because it's easier. You could use freshly grated as well. So my lemon, I'm just gonna slice in half. I'm just gonna need half of a lemon. Does he want to eat it? Of course he does.
I think so.
I'm gonna add about 4 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Just a rough estimate. Maybe a little bit more just because why not? I got my lemon ready to go, olive oil at the very end. I'm gonna hold off on dressing for now just because I don't want it to get too soggy. All right, so this is cooking off very nicely. Some of my clams are starting to open up. I'm gonna take a quick taste of the liquid to see how we're doing. And see if that wine is cooked off. It smells like it did. It's been in there about 3 or 4 minutes, so we should be good to go. Perfect. Got a little heat.
That's,
Got a little heat.
that's okay. We do like things a little bit spicy. If that's up to your taste. So when you're adding that crushed red pepper, give it a little taste before, just to make sure that that's what you want. Go a little bit lighter at first, and if you want to add some more heat, throw in some more. You can't undo that mistake.
No, you can't. Something else we like to do is to do our dishes as we go. This is something you never see on a cooking show because they just throw it underneath into some sort of bus tub and not have to worry about it.
And then somebody on staff will clean it up.
is going to clean it off. Well, since we're not on a professionally done cooking show, and we don't have our own staff. I'm gonna go ahead and, while I'm waiting for those to steam and open up, I'm gonna clean the dishes, because nothing worse than cleaning the dishes at the very end after you're stuffed and you want to relax, and then you have a dirty kitchen. So I'm just gonna take care of that now.
And you know what? It's kind of this inside joke between the two of us. We have a dishwasher in our house, but Jimmy loves to tell people that I don't allow him to use it.
Because she doesn't.
That's not really the truth. We have a great dishwasher. Thanks, Babs. Jimmy's mom purchased this dishwasher for us before we had our baby. We had one in our home, but it was very, very old and wasn't doing so well anymore. But I just prefer to hand wash things, especially if there's only two of us, because we don't really accumulate a lot of dishes. However, if you're going to be hosting for a lot of people, it's great to have a dishwasher, and it's really good to have a dishwasher with a baby to just kind of sanitize his things. But a lot of the time, we just like to wash our dishes at the sink, get them
So
done.
holidays is when I'm usually given permission.
And like we said, our dogs love to hang out at your feet while you're doing the dishes, but we like to clean as we go. We just feel it's a lot easier to get what you need done at the same time, especially if it's two of you in the kitchen. You could, we like to work together, so oftentimes he'll be at the stove and I'll be doing the dishes, or vice versa, and it just makes for easier cleanup and relaxation after you eat your meal. So it looks like these clams are doing pretty well.
They've been in there about 3 minutes. They're gonna need a bit more time. You could always sneak a peek. Don't sneak a peek too many times, because you want them to be able to steam. When I sneak a quick peek, I can see only a couple have started to open up.
So they need more time.
It's gonna need more time. Just gonna close this back up. And I have the heat on medium-high right now.
We are looking forward to this. It smells really good in here. I'm getting hungry. I know baby is getting hungry.
I wouldn't be surprised if Sally has to take a quick leave of absence.
I know, that's what I'm thinking too. I may have to step away for a moment, but right now he's doing okay.
We got our new dishes ready to go.
Our new white dishes. My mom dropped these off to us the other day. She said, I think for your cooking stream, you should have just plain white plates. And for your Instagram, for when you take pictures of your meals, it'll show up nicer. I think she's right. We have white dishes, but they have a design on them, so it could, and they have like a red and gray and black on them, so I think it's a little bit easier to see on the white plates. You'll be able to get a better view of what we're seeing here.
I agree.
And I so desperately want to eat one of these croutons. They're right in front of me and they look really, really good. So I might sneak one, give it a taste.
I already did, so.
Mmm. Yummy. Really yummy, really easy, like we said, and it's a great way to get rid of that bread that is on its way out. Yummy. So tell us in the chat some of the things that you like to make at home. What are things that you like to do that are kind of quick and easy, or things that or rather maybe things that you like to make to impress other people when they come over. I'm going to check out the chat.
So I grabbed a couple of cherry tomatoes to throw into our salad. I love tomatoes. Now is pretty much like the peak to the end of tomatoes here in New Jersey for fresh tomatoes. These are not Jersey, well, they could be Jersey tomatoes, I'm not sure. Where are these from?
They might be kind of local.
Nope, product in Mexico.
Ah.
But we're gonna add some tomatoes in here because they're delicious and they add a nice little bit of color. Sally always laughs because I like to plate everything pretty because we also eat with our eyes. Clams have now been in there for 6 minutes, so we're getting there.
Yep, I'm trying to get a view through the top of the pot here. There's a lot of steam, so I can't really quite see, but we're going to give them some more time. Like we said, we don't want to keep taking the lid off and let the steam escape. It's just going to take longer to cook. So we're going to let those hang out just a little bit longer. And I don't know if you can see, well, you can't obviously, but I'm gonna give you a quick view of this salad. It's looking so good already. It's obviously not dressed yet, but it's really, really tasty. We try to have our greens in this household.
I think we do a good job of things.
We get a lot of produce. We try to use them up. We like to make a lot of salads. When I was pregnant, my first trimester, I couldn't even think about touching anything that was green. And I love spinach and broccoli and all sorts of vegetables, and I couldn't even look at them when I was pregnant at first. After that first trimester, though, we got better, and then I was able to eat my salads and things like that again. But when I was pregnant, all I really craved was apples, Honeycrisp apples.
I see the Icelandic theater geek likes to make homemade KFC a lot.
Homemade KFC? Oh, some fried chicken.
That's really cool. Yeah, we don't make a ton of fried chicken.
We don't. It's always something that's upset my stomach if I eat it out at certain places. So maybe you can give us some of the details on how you make your KFC at home, and I'm sure that would be better for us and healthier.
So our sauce is steaming
You
in there.
could actually see, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there is steam piping out of this pot right here.
And sneaking a peek, I can see those clams starting to open up. I used to love KFC as a kid, and my mom she can't chat this, but this is true. They used to have these things called Chicken Littles, and they were like a White Castle slider, except it was a little mini bun, a little fried chicken nugget, and butter. And I used to eat them by the dozen. Ooh, I was a big little boy. And I'd just come home, dip them in ketchup, and I'd eat like a half dozen or a dozen as a snack. I'd eat them as a snack.
Oh wow! So I see some other dishes too. We have, let's see, it said on the rocks. Was it said that she makes Mexican dishes like chili rellenos? Oh, that sounds really yummy.
Yeah, we were just watching Padma's Last Day News show last night, and she was in Juarez and El Paso. And they were making chili rellenos. They were making traditional burritos, which were so interesting. I know I've never had a traditional burrito because they did not have rice in them. So they weren't these monster Chipotle-esque burritos. They were far more manageable of a size.
Mm-hmm. They looked really delicious. We love to make things like tacos here. One of the days I'll definitely make this really, really easy, simple taco bake. Which is really yummy and super easy, and it kind of reminiscent of what were those hamburger health meals like what you used to have as a kid. That's something that we could make. We could make tacos one night. We actually made this really fun recipe recently too, which was like a taco lasagna.
Oh yeah, that
we
was
had
great.
Seen online, and we wanted to try it out, and that worked out really well. And that was something that you could absolutely make if you're going to like a potluck or something.
We do a decent amount of bakes, which are awesome because you do your prep work, you throw it in the oven, you don't have to worry about it. They're going to sustain 2 people for, depending on how hungry you are, at least 2 days.
At least 2 days for leftovers.
So you're going to have lunch the next day or dinner the following night, which is just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So these clams are ready. Very simple way to know they're ready are they have opened up. So I'll show you one, nice and toasty hot. They've opened up. Hello, hello. So once it's open, we know that it is ready. If any of the clams are not open, that means they're not good to eat. If you're like me and you don't want to lose the clam, if it's on top and it's not open, see if you can move it down to the bottom so it'll get closer to that liquid.
I see that Perfect Disaster, you said that you like to make lasagnas. We do make lasagna occasionally, but like I said, the most recent meal that we made was a play on Mexican lasagna, where you don't use a noodle, you actually use flour tortillas to make the layers. And that's something that we could definitely make on this channel at some time. We have some ideas of things that we'd like to make.
On the Rock said my hometown.
Oh, El Paso?
El Paso? It looked like just a beautiful town, beautiful culture, and I feel like Padma really did it justice. Really showed what it's like today
to live in a border town.
To live in a border town.
Mm-hmm.
It actually opened up with her shots constantly being interrupted by the helicopters and planes of Border Patrol going over. So it really set the tone of the challenges of living on a border town and the current state of this country. We go one way or the other. We go left. So I'm going to add a half of a lemon to this kale, and then I'm going to generously add extra virgin olive oil. It's probably going to be about 4 tablespoons.
Yeah. I can't really say that I'm the cook in this house. Jimmy is. He's much better at it than I am. Even with like the really simple things like this, like with the salad dressing. Oh, his salad dressing is the best. Honestly, I prefer it to have his salad here than at restaurants because I know that it's good. I know that it's much better and healthier for me too.
And it's really so simple. It's lemon and olive oil, and it really just goes a long way. That acidity of the lemon, and again, this is why you want to have a fresh olive oil, what we alluded to earlier. It really makes a difference. And I'm just going to taste. Actually, could use a much more of those. So it's a little more kale than I intended, so I'm going to add probably about 2 more tablespoons of olive oil. I'm going to go ahead and just juice the other half of this lemon.
I don't think we're going to be able to stay on the chat.
I don't know if we're going to be able to chat after this because somebody's hungry.
We were thinking about staying on the channel maybe like while we were eating our dinner, but it looks like somebody else might want to be eating his dinner soon too.
Yeah, we might have to, well, maybe I'll just go on camera. You can go off camera.
That's true. That's actually true. We could do something like that.
Add a little more cheese.
He is in the stage right now where if he is eating, he's very distracted by my talking, so it has to be very, very quiet.
Let's see if it'll work. Maybe I gotta plug in my earbuds. So I'm gonna add a touch more salt and pepper. Just give this another quick toss. Cheese is gonna be your friend on this. You want to see the cheese coated across all of the kale. The more that you see it coated, the better it is going to taste. I probably should have used a bigger bowl because I'm spilling out all over here, but that's all right. In the meantime, clams are ready. So now I'm going to add my fresh herbs. Let's plate this fancy. Let's put it into a real bowl.
Oh yeah, he's gonna make this look really nice for us. I see in the comments here that with the homemade KFC that you use rye flour instead of regular flour. That's a really interesting tip. I don't think I've ever used rye flour to cook before, so that might be something
to explore.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
All right, so I'm just going to pull a couple off the top. I don't want them to break as they go in, but I'm going to just put them all into this bowl because I think presentation-wise it's going to look gorgeous.
You're going to be able to see this liquid.
Liquid, the best part of this dish.
It's all on the bottom, the juices, the sausage.
Let's go the fun way. And here we go, so going in.
You can take a look. Ooh, that looks good.
The more juice, the better, because that's the best part for dipping.
Oh, we lost the chorizo. That's okay, there's still plenty in there.
So I'm going to plate this for the purposes of this show. Normally I would just leave it in the pot because it's going to stay warm. Once you take this out, it's going to immediately start to cool. But I want all of you to be able to see it.
Yeah, you'll be able to take a look when we add those
chorizo
herbs on top. Beautiful.
Fresh herbs going on top. Mwah. And then I gotta grab another lemon. Excuse me, Ricky.
And like I said, I'll take a photo of this before we eat it all up, and I will post it and the recipe to our Instagram page a little later on. Our Instagram handle is the same as our handle here. OurDinnerisDunn.
I'm gonna zest a little lemon over the top. You notice I didn't add lemon to the sauce itself. You could if you want. I don't think that it necessarily needs it. And I'm just gonna add a little lemon at the very end. Give it a bite of acidity.
Someone is excited.
Someone's excited for this.
And excited for his dinner too.
So there we go. We have our sauteed clam or steamed clams with a chicken chorizo. We have a kale and cherry tomato salad.
Why don't you add our croutons on top
Oh,
so you can take a look at what that will look like.
And when plating tastic, we actually have our nice sliced Italian bread. Now I'm just going to toss these croutons right on top. Give those a nice little toss, and there we go.
Yeah, it looks delicious. We're excited to eat it.
Yeah.
We're excited for you to try it at home if you'd like.
Yeah.
We'll share the recipe. And thank you for joining us
Yeah,
again.
I think dinner is done.
Yeah,
Did
our
I just
dinner
use
is
the
done.
catchphrase?
Yes, you did. Our dinner is done. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again on Friday. Our idea is to stream on Wednesdays and Fridays, and then maybe an extra day here and there. We'll let you know. But
Maybe a brunch bonus, a bonus brunch.
maybe a bonus brunch. But for now, keep your eye out on our schedule, and we're going to be on Wednesdays and Fridays at 5 to 6 Eastern Time. Oh, look at that. Whoops. There is our clams, our salad, and our yummy bread. And I'll take some photos and put them on Instagram. So thanks again for joining us. We'll see you again soon. See you on Friday.
Oh, I didn't stop it. I don't know how to stop it. Come here, Meatball. Want to be on camera? Is it stopped?